Well, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. When we sort of floated this idea, I guess, to the Napa Vintners, I sort of thought, we do this all the time. We float these great ideas. Everyone goes, oh, that's a great idea. And then it wanders off into the ether and we never hear from it again. But this time we had the inimitable Michelle Novi from the Vintners on our team, and she said, all right, let's get it done. How about May? I was like, okay, sure. I don't know where. And Artesa was like, we'll do it. I was like, okay, so I guess we're doing it. So we brought it together very quickly. Thank you so much to our host and to the Vintners for helping make this happen. And of course, to our incredible friends at B-Corp for responding present literally the same day I put it out on the wires. And they all said categorically, it must be in person because we all want to share a glass of wine. So really love the fact that we're able to do this in person. Thank you very much for filming, so we can share it with the broader community. But briefly, really what we just wanted to do, I think, is kind of share our experience as certified B Corps, kind of why we did this, the benefits that we have found to being a B Corp, and then have a little information from the gurus and sages of the B Corp world about certification, what it means, how it's changing, and then really have space for questions, because I think that everybody who has made the effort to come out here on a Tuesday probably has some big questions, and you have the perfect people to answer them here. So I would like to have our fabulous hostess introduce herself and tell us a little bit about your B Corp journey.
Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for being here today. My name is Marta Echavarri. I'm the business director here for Artesa. I'm from Spain. I moved here a couple of years ago. And I just asked and checked that we are the 4th winery here in the Napa Valley with the B Corp certification, and it's a very important achievement for us. So I did prepare just a few information to share with you, just for you to understand how big and how important it was this for us. We started a couple of years ago. We belong to the Raventus Codinio group. It's one of the largest and the oldest winery in Spain. So we always say, born in Barcelona, raised here in Napa Valley. So think about 1551 in Barcelona. That's where we were born. This is the oldest wine there. And we've always thinking as a startup, but with a bit of background, like saying, okay, it's a 500 years history startup, which is a nice way of introducing what we do. So it's truly a pleasure for us to host you today, especially for this special and meaningful occasion. We're incredibly proud to represent Raventus Codinio, recently certified as a B Corp company. It marks a transformative milestone for our group, and it's been 2 years of dedicating work just to could say that we do have a commitment, not only for the economic goals that we have, but for the eyes of the world, really environment with the rest of the people, thinking what can we do to do something good for the rest of the people. We do have incredible wines, we do have an incredible property. We receive here 40,000 visitors every year to enjoy, to cheers, to share. I think it's very important to think about us sharing special, like celebratory moments, but what else can we do? And I think it's important that we did get a score of 88.5 points, which make us even, a bit more proud of what we did in the last 2 years. We do have 15 wineries across Spain, 13 in Spain, 1 in Argentina, in La Cordillera de los Andes. It's called Septima. And this one, Artesa, which means artisans, from 1991. So it was a very global goal for all of us to say, hey, you always have a Raventus Codinio in somewhere in the world where the sun comes, where somebody comes to, toast for you. What can we do for those people, for those visitors, for the drinkers that really want to share those wines with us? So that's why we decided to say, okay, let's go. Let's do that mindset of a startup, going a little bit more and have that commitment. So our mission is really easy for us. And we always say, giving soil its value. And that's what we think we have to do. So giving soil its value speaks to our commitment, not just to the land, but sustainability, but to people, communities, which is a word that is so important for us to understand, and long-term positive impact. That's why we decided, okay, you know what? What's the next step for the Raventus Codinio? Oldest winery in Spain, one of the largest. We have to, give an example to everybody. That commitment needs to do something else. So that's why we've been working, the whole entire group, 1,000 people working on saying, hey, let's have that commitment. And we did it. Actually, you've seen 88.5 points. So that means not only we did it, but we did it really well. And we have to be super proud of this. We're especially honored to bring this global purpose here in Napa Valley, which we are the fourth. And I'm pretty sure that after this conversation, many of you will have the idea of, hey, why don't we go together? And it will be great because that will mean that all of us together have the commitment with the rest of our friends and colleagues, not only in the business, in the industry, but also in other industries to say, hey, it's important to work from others. So thank you so much, Napa Winners. It's incredible always to work with you. You have to be super proud of helping us and leading us. And I think it's really easy. So together, let's continue using business as a force for good. So cheers to everybody for a better future, and if it's sharing together, it's much better.
Absolutely. And I love that because I think it's such a great counterpoint to our story at Trois Noirs, which is much smaller, much more personal. And Trois Noirs really started as, it was sort of a side project for me. Beware the side project. And I was very interested already in ideas around running business as a force for good in the community. That was always something that was very ingrained on me. And I think it's actually something that Napa Valley wineries do well and have always done. Partly, I think, because we do go from soil through the winery into commercialization in the market to the final consumer, right? We touch every single piece of the chain at some point. And so I think that there's a way in which we see all of the different pieces. And there's always been a real commitment to being a community here, being a very tightly knit community here, giving back to our community here. And so in 2020, we're all home, and it's quarantine, so we can't see anybody, and it's fires, so we can't go to the winery, and it's all horrendous. And then George Floyd happened. And I know for a lot of us, it was, the question was, what can we do? How do we make this mean something? How do we do better? And one of my former employees actually said, well, have you heard about B-Corp? And I was like, absolutely not. And they showed it to me. And of course, because I'm home, I have nothing better to do than to fill out the assessment. And so I started filling it out. And I'm like, this is genius. Because not only does it respond to all of my reward behavior of having been raised on sticker charts and points and quizzes, but also it gave me some really great ideas. There were things that we were doing, but we hadn't codified. I was like, oh, that's super easy to write down. That's a really good idea. We should keep doing that. Other things that had never occurred to me that were really super easy for us to implement. I was like, and we can get 1.14 points? Oh yes, we are totally doing that. Anyway, long story short, we went into that big 2020, 2021 pool of people. And so it took us about 18 months to get certified, which meant that Spotswood pipped us to the post by 2 months of being the first B Corp in Napa, B Corp winery. But we were the second. And I think for us, it's been an incredible journey, partly because it's a way for us to really manifest what we believe and ideas that we want to continue about running our business as a force for good in our community. But it's also opened up a huge worldwide community that is comprised of all different industries, that is comprised of all different nationalities, that is comprised of all different levels of size of company and different approaches and everything, and really with singular purpose and all looking to kind of help each other. The Beehive is just the most amazing place. It really is. And I think for us, it's been an incredible resource, especially for a small company. And just the sharing, the support has been really spectacular. So we just got recertified, which is great, and thank you very much. And I'm actually excited because I think you may or may not have heard that there are actually new standards coming into play for B Corp, and obviously the experts will talk to that in much greater detail. But for me, as a B Corp, and as a B Corp for 4 years now, I will say that I think it's so important because it's really putting B Corp's money where its mouth is. The idea of progress, not perfection, is so important. And being able to say, okay, we created this incredible thing, and now, and I actually participated in one of the focus groups, which was great. And so, you know, we're all in this together, and we're all trying to do better. And I think it's, I think it was time to create something that was not any more difficult to obtain for people in good faith, but definitely avoiding the kind of gamification of certification, which can lead to some greenwashing issues and things like that, you know, I think we all have read articles about. So I really applaud B Corp for doing that, and I know it's huge. I mean, it's turning the Titanic, for real. But I'm super excited about it, and actually, I had a little dig around in the new certification guidelines and things, and it's fabulous, because I also think that a lot of it is really not only saying, okay, here's all the things you need to have to be certified now, but here are the things to do in these next 3 years before your next certification. It's helping you with that continual progress, and not that we don't do it, but being able to codify it and being able to specifically create process around it is really, really helpful, I think, particularly because a lot of times we want to do better, we just don't know which way to go. And I think that's something that's definitely, for us, we found very, very helpful. Anyway, I can talk all day, as my friends will tell you. So I would love to pass it over to Carolina. Can you introduce yourself and, yeah, give us a little background?
I will say that was one of the most enthusiastic endorsements of the that I've heard from anybody outside of B-Lab or outside of B-Corp consultant. And so I think that was great. I know we'll talk more about that, but I agree with what you were sharing. My name is Miranda, and my company is called Cultivating Capital. We've been certified B Corp since 2012. And before that, I actually helped my last employer get B Corp certification back in 2009 before I started my own company. So I'm very focused on B Corps and the B Corp movement. It's all that I do. I'm not a winery. I love wine though. And what I do is I actually support companies in certifying or recertifying as B Corps. And so my focus is particularly with small businesses, because a lot of times at the multinationals, they have more resources, right? They can have entire departments that are doing a lot of this work. The small businesses have a harder time. And it's not just because it's a challenging process, but sometimes it's just understanding, what does this mean for my business? This requirement, I don't understand how it applies to me. I don't understand how it will benefit my business. I don't understand how to do it. So I spend a lot of my time supporting companies through that process and saying, well, let's talk about what it would look like for your company to be able to do these things. Because of the work that I do, I have been paying very close attention to the new standards. Just to kind of get a quick sense of who's in the room, just to know how much context might be helpful for kind of old standards versus new standards. How many B Corps do we have? Can you raise your hands just a little more? Okay, so we got a few B Corps. How many considering B Corp certification? All right. So for those of you who are B Corps, have you started looking at the new standards? Okay, a couple of people. All right, so just to kind of provide a little bit of context, from the time that the first B Corps were certified in 2007 up until April 8th of this year, the process to get certified is you answered questions on this really long beast of an assessment. Yeah. And you do good things, you earn points, you get up to 80 points, you submit to B-Lab. That's the nonprofit that administers a certification. They ask for a ton of documentation.
because they're not going to give you those 0.37 points until they see your documentation for it. Once they pass all of that, then the company's certified. So that's been the process up until now. The gamification piece comes in because sometimes people would do things for points without, maybe they meant like the letter but not the spirit of the law, so to speak. Under the new standards, B-Lab has said, you know what, that model didn't quite work, because you could have a company that's a certified B Corp that's not measuring its carbon footprint, for example. So the question became, what does it really mean to be a B Corp? And can you really say that you're a B Corp if you're not taking action on the pressing social and environmental issues of our time? So B-Lab, back in around 2020, they actually said, they sent this survey out to the community, and they said, should we even consider changing these standards? And there were enough people who said, yes, you should. And then they basically embarked on a 4.5-year process with focus groups, with surveys, with public consultations, getting feedback from B Corps, getting feedback from other stakeholder groups. And they have just rolled out this new set of standards. And what it means is that going forward, B Corps will need to meet a baseline set of requirements. So under what we're calling the current standards, you may or may not be measuring your carbon footprint, to use that as an example. But if you get to 80 points doing other things, then you're good to go. Under the new standards, that's going to be a baseline requirement. Companies will have to manage their carbon footprint. So that is really a seismic shift for the community. And there's, as with change, there's a lot of anxiety around that. And some people, wondering like, will my B Corp be able to meet these standards, things like that. But I agree with what Jaime was saying. I think overall it's going to make it clear to express what it means to be a B Corp. And I think that based off of the feedback that B-Lab got from people, pretty much the vast majority of the B Corp community is small businesses. And small businesses were like, hey, if you're going to do this, you have to make it workable for us. Don't necessarily dilute the standards and say you don't have to do anything with regards to carbon emissions and addressing the climate crisis, but make it feasible for us. And so that is something that actually was done, and I think was done, pretty well. So I could probably talk your ear off about B Corps for the next couple of hours, but I will not do that. I will just say, it is something that I think is going to be a benefit for the community overall, and hopefully it will also encourage more companies to come and to join the movement.
I would say really, in terms of the benefits that we've seen, I think in the same way that me as a consumer, when I'm in the store and I turn something around and I see the B, I'm like, all right, I don't really have to do too much more homework. Like, I know they met a baseline. I know they're at least making an effort. And we've seen that with a lot of younger consumers. So Twanwa does skew a lot younger. Sorry for hitting my microphone. Terrible, rookie mistake. Twanwa does, our consumers skew younger than the traditional Napa wineries. And it has definitely been something that people respond to. It's something that they're looking for. And when they're looking to spend their money, it is a way to feel good about that. And I think that's something that we've definitely heard and seen from our consumers over the last couple of years. And I think too, I don't know, personally, I am very interested in making sure that I use the position that I have to stand up for things that I think are important. And being a certified B Corporation is a very clear way of doing that. And I think the new standards actually double down. Whereas a lot of people are like, we'll just water this down so everyone can do it. B Corp has actually said, nope, this is where the stake is and this is where it's staying, and we're actually going to reinforce it. So that to me is something that is really important, just on a personal note. Anyway, I'm sure you have tons of questions, probably for Carolina mostly. So if anybody has questions, please.
What are the costs associated with becoming a B Corp? So there is an annual licensing fee that needs to be paid to be licensing fee is set on a scale
based off of the company's revenue. So at the lowest scale, it is $2,000 a year for companies that have under 5 million in annual revenues. For companies that have under 5 million in annual revenues that are owned and run by woman, person of color, LGBTQIA plus individual, veterans, there are certain groups that do qualify for an additional discount on those certification fees. And then beyond that, they do start to scale up, again, based off of company revenue. What I have seen is that in many cases, it is in the general range of about 1-ish% of a company's annual revenue. Consider that a very loose rule of thumb. If you want to know exactly what it is, you can go to B-Lab's website, or you can just search B-Lab certification fees, or you can just email me, and they have this tool set up where you just enter, what the company's revenue is, and then you'll see exactly what that is. I will say one thing regarding the certification fees is that sometimes people are concerned about, well, we're paying so much money to B-Lab, and we're doing these things anyways, or, is that the best use of our money to be, paying a third party for this certification? The way that I encourage people to consider it is think about those benefits, like what Jaime just mentioned, right? It sends a very clear signal to consumers, and not just B2C, B2B. We see it like with marketing agencies, for example, recruitment agencies, right? Engineering firms, where they say, people know and more are becoming aware of what it means to be a B Corp. So it has that business advantage of providing clear differentiation from competitors. It could help with recruitment and retention, especially, everybody says, Gen Z. I'm Gen X. I'm like, hey, Gen X cares about our values too,
Actually, Gen X is considered younger consumers in Napa Valley. So.
All right, I love that. You just made my day.
There we go.
So, but they say Gen Z is like looking for workplaces where, that align with their values. And probably the one thing that I hear time and again from B Corps is they say people are now coming to us. Qualified people are coming to us because we're a B Corp. There's professional development opportunities. There are groups for marketers. There's groups for HR professionals. There are groups by industry, tourism, the B Corp Beauty Coalition. There are all kinds of things taking place. There are business development opportunities. So going back to the question about fees, if you say, well, these are our annual fees, break that out by month, and then look at, okay, how much would I be paying for separate organizations for business development, for marketing, for professional development, for my team, then I think that you start to see the business value and the business case being made for the investment of those certification fees in B Corp certification.
I will also say that we found the company that deals with our 401k program and also our healthcare program through B Corp, and they're amazing. So, and they are just super great. And again, like with our 401k, we know that they're not investing in fossil fuel companies. We know that they are actually shepherding this money in a responsible way. So it's like one thing I don't have to worry about, which is really, really helpful.
One thing I'll add to that, because that's a good point, a lot of B Corps will also offer discounts to other B Corps.
Yep.
And so that's something, like
We do.
marketing. There you go.
We will.
Yeah, there you go. It's because it's still a movement of early adopters, right? We haven't yet hit 10,000 B Corps around the world. We haven't yet hit 3,000 B Corps across the US and Canada. And so we want to see this movement grow, and one of the ways that we can do that is by doing more business with each other. So a lot of B Corps will offer those types of benefits or discounts, to other B Corps. So the question was, with the new standards, is there an expectation that some B Corps will not be able to maintain their certification? Yes, there is. I know that there is an expected attrition rate that will likely be seen, as the new standards roll out. My personal feeling on that is that the companies that we lose are going to fall into one of two categories. One is they're going to be the B Corps whose heart wasn't in it fully, because most B Corps, like I think, we've got great examples here. It's like, okay, there's new standards coming out. All right, we'll do it. Does it mean we need to do things differently? Yeah. Does it mean that some things are going to be new? Yeah. But if this is something that you believe in the way that you articulated very well, then you do it, right? And so I think there are some companies, though, where it was more of kind of a marketing effort than a true reflection of the company's values. And so I think that for those companies, it's going to be easier to say, no, this is too much. We're not going to do that. That's one group that I can see kind of falling out. The second group, honestly, is bigger B Corps, because the standards were contextualized based off of company size. They were contextualized in other ways, but for our purposes right now, based off of company size. So if you have a small B Corp, say, under 10, under 50 employees, you have to develop a climate action plan. You have to look at, what are your hotspots for emissions, business travel, manufacturing, whatever it is. You have to come up with a plan to address that. If you are, and you have to do that publicly. You actually have to have that public facing on your website somewhere. If you're a smaller business, you're like, okay, we'll do that, right? Bigger companies, I'm talking more like, thousands of employees, multinationals, like they have to have their results verified. They have to report publicly on their process, right? On their progress. There's just going to be different things that I think might turn off some bigger companies. They have to have a public policy on lobbying, and they have to ensure that their lobbying is not at odds with B-Lab's theory of change, meaning you can't say you're a B Corp and be lobbying against, regulation and legislation to address the climate crisis. Those two things are fundamentally at odds. Under the current standards, you could technically do that. Under the new standards, that won't be acceptable anymore. And so I think that we are also going to see some of these bigger companies kind of drop off, at least in the short term. There might be a little bit of right sizing that takes place. My thing is, I don't want any B Corp, I don't think any B Corp that really wants to remain a B Corp will not be able to meet the new standards so long as they're willing to make the necessary changes.
And I will say, I just on our small level, just to give you an example, so we got B Corp certified, and then we decided to go for Napa Green certification, right? And our Napa Green certification took like 40 minutes because we already had all that information, because we'd already done the B Corp stuff. So I think, to your point, I think for those bigger companies that are actually doing things in good ways, that are actually doing what they should be doing if they're a B Corp, I don't know that it's going to be that complicated. I think those people who were in the letter, not the spirit of the law, may find it more challenging, and that's kind of the point. If we're all working really hard, like, how is it that somebody else can come in and just because they're super big and they get huge points on one thing, they can, I'm actually quite excited. And I think it's going to encourage more people to join, honestly. So I think the people we lose will still, Patagonia is not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think we also have the opportunity to pick up more smaller businesses, because the standards are they make more sense for them. Yeah, so the question was around government affairs and collective action and how we are seeing that might apply. Does that basically capture the gist of it?
Yeah, what would that look like for businesses?
Yeah.
Yeah, and specifically for Napa.
Yeah. So just the context setting around that is that under the new standards, there are 7 impact topics. And those topics, include purpose and stakeholder governance, fair work, JEDI, climate action, environmental stewardship and circularity, human rights. And then there is this other one that they're calling government affairs and collective action. That's where there's requirements around lobbying, responsible lobbying practices. They also included some requirement around collective action, recognizing that this is really a movement. It's not just about individual companies being certified. And so how do we start to work together more closely as B Corps? And there are a few different ways that this can be done. One of the ways that could be pertinent here is that the companies can work with industry associations, for example, to advance social and environmental practices, better social and environmental practices, whether that be actual legislation or the adoption of some type of industry standards. So, so that's what it is, and it has also been, again, in terms of contextualization for smaller companies, they have also taken into account that for some smaller businesses, especially in professional services, for example, there's a lot of thought leadership that takes place. So the company might not be in a position where they are, lobbying for legislation, but they might be in a position where they are actively putting out content to get people to think differently about these issues.
Yeah, and I would say just from the Napa specific point of view, very handily, we just did our Napa Valley Vintners lobbying trip to DC in April. And I was actually on that trip for the third time. So it was a wild ride and a wild time to be in DC, for sure. But it was actually super, super helpful because for the first time, I really felt like we were helping them. We were giving them concrete examples of people whose lives are being affected by some of these policies. And they were able to take those and go to their bosses, the powers that be, and say, no, actually, I've spoken to someone who said this, who's had this thing. And I will say that one of the things that's going to be really great for any Napa winery that is a member of the Napa Valley Vintners is that trip goes every year, and there is always climate action, fire mitigation prevention, all of those good things, at least the last few years, is always in there. So we're always concerned with the environment, right? We're always concerned with family farms. We're always concerned with fairness for homeowners and being able to afford insurance and all of those things. And so by association, you are a member of this group that you are part of our lobbying trip, right? If you're a member of the Vintners. So it's actually a kind of a nice way to get that done.
I had a question actually for Marta and about how the decision was made to become a B Corp. Did that come from the ownership, or did it come from a lower level, staff kind of encouraging the ownership?
That's a really good question. So she's asking why we decided to go to the certification, if it's something that it was the owners. In the case of, I'm speaking about Artesa. Artesa belongs to the Raventós Covenue. So it's the entire group, the one that did the certification. It was headed by the headquarters team, which is based in Barcelona, but it's the whole of us. It's 15 wineries. So in our case, the property right now, it's a global company, it's worldwide. So we do have 30% of the company still in hands of the same family that it's been for many generations. The other 70%, as is a large group, is an investment company, and they are really committed for doing good things for the rest of the people. So what we wanted to do is, it was something fun you were asking before. It's something about transparency, and when we decided to do this a couple of years ago, it was risky for us because it's a large company, and it's like, hey, we decide to go this. Owners, investment company behind, marketing team, all the different directors, all the teams. It's like we really need to demonstrate that our goal is committed to the soil like never before, because what we need to do is to change, to make a commitment to whatever we decide to do in the lobby side, in the production, in the environment, with the climate, with the marketing campaigns, with, we are of course Green Napa, but how do we want to go for the young people, for the young consumers? Because that's going to change our commercial side. That's going to change the commercial storytelling. whatever we decide to do, if we are really under the policy that's saying we have this commitment for everybody, it needs to be our primary goal, over and much more important than the financial goals. And that was something important because it's not only small companies, but in this case, I can tell that in a big company like us with 15 different wineries, it was priority to say, okay, from now on, because we really believe that what we're doing is good for the people. So if we really want people to celebrate, to share, a nice family time with our wine, we want for them to be much more than drinking wine. They want to be sharing our values and saying what those people working and under the Graventus Code, the new people, and brands and goals and different wines and SKUs and everything, it's under the same goal. And for us, it was priority. So the owners plus the investment company decided that it was our goal. So our commitment to the soul, it's something that moves everything for us. So all the different strategies that we're working for, and I love seeing, because we just got certified. If we keep this conversation next year, we will probably say, hey, what changed in our cases? We didn't have the time yet to see how it changes, the benefits that came to us, which I'm positive sure is going to be a lot of them. But it's something we really want to say. Everybody in the company, from financial to every single person, employees, are committed to the B. And that's something that is going to change. And we will see it. If you go to the website, it's been changed already. Transparency, transparency, transparency for whatever we decide to do.
Mm-hmm. And I will say too, I think a lot of times people get very concerned, or they kind of put up a barrier or a wall about the fact that these certification standards are very sort of exacting and very demanding. But they're demanding in a good way. And also, there's probably a lot of stuff you're already doing. If this is something that appeals to you, if this is the kind of way you want to do business, there's probably a lot of things that might seem very demanding to someone else who's not doing them that way, but you maybe already are doing them. So I also kind of tell people, don't hesitate to start the process, because you may find it's actually a lot easier than you think.
It's going to help you to understand if what you're doing, if we are all on the same page, and if it's on brand or it's not on brand, because it really helps you. So if that's the commitment you want to do, if that's the goal you want to do, every single thing you decide to do under the marketing side, under the production side, under commercial side, it needs to be on that direction. And that really helps us to understand, hey, is this what Artesa want to do? If makes under all the policy that we've been working, and that really help us to understand how we should be working, then it's fine. And if it's not there, it's easy. It's not our way.
Yeah. I really appreciate you bringing that up, because it's kind of like what I was talking about earlier about companies whose heart isn't in it. And if, everything that you have articulated right now, that you've both articulated, is demonstrating when there is that commitment, setting up a climate action plan, it's doable, right? Setting up some of these policies, measuring some of these KPIs, all of that becomes doable once you have that buy-in from the top. And I think that that's something that is also really important in terms of what you mentioned at the beginning, Marta, about you guys being an example in your industry. That's the leadership that is being demonstrated, right? There's a lot of companies, a lot of wineries, to use this industry, that aren't doing all the things that you guys are doing, right? But when you're saying, you know what, this is what we're doing and we're committed to this continuous improvement, you start to see that differentiation, and you start to see those benefits coming back.
Yeah. For us, sorry.
No, go ahead.
It was, we do have a director that she's great. She's been leading this project. She works for the environment. So from Barcelona, we do have a team that it's not only when we speak about communications, it's communications plus sustainability in every single aspect that we're working for. So that was a part of the project, but it's transversal to whatever we do. In every single aspect of Graventus Code, we work seeing what the environment is going to be. And we are the largest producer. We're cava producers, which is sparkling in Spain, ecological. So everything started and it's going in the same line. So that was just the next step we wanted to do, because we've been following. So this is the number 500 harvests for us. So it was important to say, okay, if we really want to keep making history, and for us it's really important, as I said before, we are like a startup, yes, but I mean, with a bit of background on that. But we feel like a startup. We like thinking like a startup, but with a bit of history behind. But that legacy that we have, we've learned how to do things, doesn't change anything from the next step right now. So that commitment we do have is like, okay, we've been here for a long time. We know what to do, really good things. But what can we do for tomorrow? How can we do better things tomorrow? If we're speaking about future, yeah, it's good. But let's really make something for the future together to be better than what we were yesterday. Yeah. And that's something we decided to do, and it's something it's helping us in every single aspect we do.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, it's like great guidance, I mean, one of the things was we redid our whole company handbook. As a small company, let's face it, like a lot of your company handbook has been copied and pasted from companyhandbooks.com or something, whatever. Fine, exactly. Well, now we have ChatGPT, yay. But a lot of it was like, oh, hang on, we could put this provision in, and this would be really good for our team, and this would be really awesome. And I mean, I don't know, my very small team is here. But I think it does actually help us all feel good together. Like, it's not an onerous thing. It's a wonderful thing to be able to give your team and to show them that you do really care, that you do really want to make this better together. And I think that helps them then go on when they're working with your vendors, your growers, whoever. And to really, everybody starts to think about, okay, we start asking our vendors, like, what are you doing for sustainability? What are you doing for DEI? What are you doing for all of these different things? And sometimes they don't have an answer, but also sometimes that helps them start to think. And maybe it's something that a couple of people have asked them, and so now all of a sudden they're going to be like, maybe we should look at this, and da, da, da. So I think it's also the kind of ripple effect that hopefully is helping to improve the community outside of even just where we are.
Yeah.
So the question was, is there something specific for the wine industry? Is it different across different industries?
Address that generally, and then I think it'd be great to hear from you too. So the way that the assessment, both the old one and the new one, are set up is that it's based off of what they call a company's track. And so there's a few different tracks. So there's one for service with a minor environmental impact, which would be like, attorneys that are just sitting in front of a computer. There's service with a significant environmental impact, which would be like a restaurant, right? There's wholesale retail, which is all companies that are either manufacturing or outsourcing all the products that most of us buy. Then there's one around manufacturing, right? And the difference between like wholesale retail and manufacturing depends on whether the company actually has ownership of the manufacturing facilities or whether that's all being done down the supply chain. And then there's one for agriculture. And that is when companies are actually working the land in some way. It's not only for wineries. It can apply to other companies. For example, I'm working with a client, they produce eggs, right? And so they're owning their farms, right? So they're gonna be on that agriculture track. But it is a one that applies to wineries. And so it might be interesting to hear from both of you, like what were some things that came up on the assessment that you had to speak to that were specific to the winery production process?
Yeah, I don't know if you...
I don't really know in general. It's good to understand because it's the first time we did it, and it's been specified for the wine industry. What I could think with what we did is that it could be replied in every other industry. I'm thinking like, which is our commitment with the environment? Well, obviously it's different. We're Green Napa. In Barcelona, it's ecological, el mayor productor ecológico de cava de España. Every single aspect is different. But for the wine industry, in Napa, there's only 4 of us doing this. I think it's going to be easy for everybody to get the commitment and to have more. I don't really know what's the difference between...
Well, it was very interesting for us because, so we're a small brand. We work with growers. We don't actually own any of our own land. We're an AP producer, so we don't actually technically own our winery. So it was one of those things, it's like, well, are we wholesale manufacturing, technically, or are we agriculture? And what was decided is that the agriculture is the kind of overriding piece of what we do. And so what was very important for us was relationships with vendors. So the piece about vendors and who we work with, our partners, became a super, super important piece. The other cool thing though is that, so we're an AP, and so we've just moved to a new winery and we're working to get them hopefully certified as well, which would then mean that everybody who makes wine there has sort of an easier on-road to B Corp certification as well. So it was a really interesting question because we were like, well, we're not really this or that. And I will say, I think the one thing, again, provided, if you're going into it wanting to do a good job, right? There is so much support. There is so much help from the community, from the auditors, from B-Lab. It really is very easy to reach out and get somebody and have them give you their time and advice and all of that and assistance. So I pretty much did the entire certification myself. Also because like a lot of the questions, the answers are in my head. So that's also, a small company, that's kind of the way it goes.
But, well, I was going to build on that and say during the pandemic, you had lots of time on your hands to do it. Indeed. So I wonder, and maybe Carolyn, maybe you can talk about this a little bit, but what is the ROI of working with a consultant if you're busy, running the company? What is the benefit of working with somebody who can help walk you through?
Yeah, I can speak to that because, as you can imagine, I get asked that question a lot, right? Why should we hire a consultant? And my answer is you actually don't have to hire a consultant. A lot of people, like Jamie, like you guys, you had the internal team, a lot of companies can get certified without a consultant. That said, I find that the clients who hire us, and usually it's as CEOs, they tend to take the approach of if I can invest to have it be done properly, not risk any mistakes, and have it done right, then that's an investment that they're willing to make. I kind of tell people it's like building your website. Anybody here can build their own company website. You do not have to spend money on a web developer to do that. However, you might not want to build your own website. It might just make sense to say, you know what, we're going to hire a developer who's going to manage this project and make sure it's done right. So, so I would say that is one factor that I find tends to get people to hire a consultant. I think another thing is like risk mitigation. There's only like 40% of companies that submit their assessment actually go on to get certified. The other 60% don't make it through the process. And that's because they might answer the questions wrong. They might not have their documentation. I've worked with clients who worked with, like, say, a team of grad students, submitted during the backlog, waited a year, had their review closed, didn't get certified because the students were enthusiastic, but they didn't understand everything that was involved, right? So I've had clients hire us because they're like, we don't want to take the chance that it's not going to be done right. And then another thing is, I think if what people are looking for when they hire a consultant also comes into play. Like if you're looking for somebody to just help you kind of check off the boxes, there's a lot of people that can do that. ChatGPT can do that for you now, right? Say like, hey, put together a community service policy for me, right? I think that, like, what I try to do with our clients is be like a strategic advisor, where we're helping them to actually improve the business using B Corp as a framework and helping them to actually grow the business and leverage all of these benefits, right? So it really depends on what a company's perspective is on whether it makes sense to make that investment or not.
Well, and I would imagine too, because you have seen so many B Corps of so many different industries and sizes and all of that, there's things that we would never even have imagined, solutions and ideas, whatever, that are just on the top of your head because you've seen it, all of that stuff, right? Which is probably really, really helpful. I kind of am sad now that I didn't do that, but it wasn't a thing back then. So, or it wasn't a thing that I found. And yeah, I had nothing but time.
Yeah. That makes a big difference, yeah.
Marta, you mentioned before, like you got the score 88 point something. Can you put that in maybe in a range? What does it mean? What is good? What is bad? And
This has to be really good, and I have to say, because we are the top-rated wine and beverage group in Spain. So 88.5, you will correct me if, more or less the average, but it's been the first position for the wine group in Spain. So it has to be really good.
Yeah, that is a pretty good score. So in order to get certified under the current standards, you have to get 80 points on the assessment. The assessment, by the way, anybody can fill it out. There's no cost or obligation. So if anybody's even just curious about what would it look like, you can go to bimpactassessment.net, you can create an account, you can go through the assessment. I think it's like 100,000 or some number of B Corps or companies that have used the assessment. The average score for non-B Corps is 50. B Corps have to meet that minimum threshold of 80. So anything beyond 80, 88.5 is pretty good. There are companies that surpass 90, they go past 100. There are some companies like, the Patagonias of the world that end up with like 150 points or something that is like really, incredible. And then the highest range of points, like the maximum is like 200 under the current standards. There's going to be no more points under
Which makes me so sad.
Yeah. That gamification piece that you didn't like, it's gone.
But it's so fun to get the points. Well, no, because, I know, right? I need my stickers. But it was also really great, too, because when we went for recertification, one of the things that we were very proud of was the fact that we actually gained another 2 or 3 points. So, yay!
Flat tire, guys.
Oh my God, poor woman. Literally got a flat tire and didn't say, sorry, I've got a flat tire, I'm not gonna come. She's like, I've got a flat tire, I'll get there.
A boss, yeah, I handled it. As one does.
So,
Yes, I'm probably glowing.
it's fine, we're in the nice cool cellar. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yes.
To the fabulous
so,
people.
Jennifer Harrity. I am the ESG and Sustainability Director at Sensiba, regional accounting firm. Actually, not regional anymore, global accounting firm now, as of a couple weeks ago. We basically take sustainability and equate it to the bottom ROI, as accountants can do. That's my day job. By night, I am the board chair of local Bay Area. So I have...
One of the things, as Catalina was saying before, that there are lots of different groups, and one of the different kinds of groups are geographical. So there is a Be Local Bay Area, which is very active and has lots of lovely events and things. And so, yeah, I thought it would be really handy for you to be here to sort of be able to answer questions from any of our local peeps.
So our firm specializes in several different industries, so we stay kind of in those industries, which is professional services, manufacturing, food and beverage, specifically wine, spirits. We work in real estate and construction, venture and tech, because Silicon Valley kind of have to. Some of you might know my co-director, Julian Givareau, from used to be at Jackson Family Wines. So if you remember Julian from over there, he now works with us. So we do, like I said, a lot of wineries, a lot of medium to large companies, right? So normally we start revenue-wise about 50 million and up for our companies. So yeah.
And how do you find, B Corps to be different to other companies that you work with?
So much nicer and easier to work with B Corp companies. So much nicer. As Michelle can attest back there, she's one of our clients, yeah. So working with B Corps, we love working with B Corps because we know the similar values are there. We feel good about sending our accountants on site to the audits, right? Because we know they're going to get treated right. They're going to get treated like humans. You know, just in working with B Corps, our calls with our B Corp clients, it's almost like you're talking to your friends on the phone. It's not as buttoned up and polished as you have to be with, like, you just kind of show up as you are, and it's okay. It just feels so freeing to be able to chat with people on a human level, and you get to learn about each other's families and kids and vacations, and it's more than just a professional client relationship. It's you show up as a full human in these engagements, and that's what I really love about working with B Corps.
I will just say, if anybody's looking for an accountant, I've been up for 6 years, and our accountant just like ascended to managing director.
Yes. So yeah, our managing partner is going to be stepping down, not retiring fully. We're still holding on to him. We're not letting him out of the building yet. But our new managing partner will be Monique Ramirez, so a Latina female. Very excited about that.
When are you going to open your small business winery portal?
Ooh, that's Julian's question.
Does anybody else have any other questions they wanted to, or any other comments? Is there anything that you were hoping to hear or find out about today that you haven't heard, or something that you didn't realize?
I hope this isn't a sore subject, but I was curious about the Dr. Bronner's thing.
Absolutely.
So, do you
No,
guys have a
we
paper
have to talk
on
about
that? Or
Super happy to talk about that. And but this is what I'm saying. The only thing that makes me sad about that, and I will still use the ball because it's amazing. No, but the only thing that makes me sad about that is that there is this entire huge process happening with the new standards specifically to address that problem. And so instead of becoming part of the solution and saying, all right, we need to move with these things, we need to support you with these new things, we're going to be the first ones to get these new standards up and running, let's go. They took a splashier marketing opportunity, and that's fair, and that's fine. And honestly, I think there is something to big names like that coming out and saying things to keep everyone honest and keep everyone on track. So I don't fault them for that, and I understand it's really frustrating when you are really sincerely focused on running business as a force for good and easy, and you see somebody coming in who clearly is not doing that, and somehow has your same certification. It's very frustrating, and that's totally understandable. But it's interesting because there are actually a couple of other in the beauty industry, other one we had, and they were doing there's pharmacy, and then there's somebody else. But anyway,
There's more to that Dr. Bronner's story if you peel back the layers. There's a reason why they came out with such a splashy press release to denounce B Corp certification, the integrity of the certification, and threw the entire community under the bus. This is public domain. So they issued, they issued a press release on a Monday denouncing this, and it was timed about 2 weeks before the new standards were kind of set to drop. They ended up pushing the standards back a couple of weeks. So they released this right before the new standards were going to drop, which they knew about and commented on and had hands in making those changes. So everything they said in that press release kind of like, okay, but the new standards kind of fixes all of that. But they did it big and splashy. And you'll notice, if any of you have ever worked in marketing or PR, you'll see the marketing and PR handprint on this. So the Thursday prior, a local news outlet had picked up that they had a wrongful death suit against them. One of their employees had overdosed on psychedelics from a ketamine massage. And the reason they got the ketamine massage was because the owners of Dr. Bronner's basically sold them that ketamine massages would help them, and actually gave them the name of the person that did the ketamine massage, who wasn't even licensed to do the ketamine massage. So the parents are now suing Dr. Bronner's because they feel that the employer pushed psychedelics, right? This wrongful death lawsuit would actually have kept them from recertifying. And as one of the highest certification scores to date, I think, right? To date, to be able to not recertify because of this is why they issued the press release that Monday to kind of drown out the news. And those of us who took a look at that and went, they're set to recertify, they're set to resubmit their certification in 2 weeks. The timing on this is a little sus. And we did a digger dive, found the legal records, which are publicly available, and dug into it. Yeah.
And now an update to that, because I just happened to be talking to a client. You can't really talk about B Corp stuff without the Dr. Bronner's thing coming up at some point, because it was, I mean, they issued this press release. They threw B Lab under the bus and everything. So this client and I were talking yesterday, actually. She didn't know about the lawsuit. So I actually pulled it up. They just settled it in March. And they actually do have a statement on their website that they have settled it. But it does raise some of these questions. The timing, like, well, why did they do it right before the new standards? Because the reason that they gave is that B Lab was enabling greenwashing because they had certified Nespresso. And so the question was, well, why are you doing this right when the new standards are coming out that are more rigorous, that have an entire section devoted to human rights? The second thing was, why are you doing this right when you need to submit and you'll have to publicly disclose this? Mm-hmm. And then the third thing was, why do it in a way like this? And because people could leave the community in a graceful way and just say, you know what, we've decided it's not for us. And that's fine. It's an individual decision for everyone. And then the other thing that I know a lot of B Corps were kind of upset about this was, given everything that's going on in Washington right now, this is not when we need infighting in a movement that is trying to advance sustainability and social impact. And so there's a lot of B Corps that we all have different opinions about things, right? But we're trying to address these issues together. And so there was a lot more, as you just said, a lot more than meets the eye to that particular chapter.
And a fourth panelist who is supposed to be here today, Ryan Honeyman, has a podcast called Beyond the Bee. And he has a wonderful episode with Farmer C, who is a B Corp owner, where they talk about Dr. Bronner's and how it really does hurt the small businesses, the minority owner businesses that this backlash created. So wonderful
This being
episode.
said, I'm always very excited to talk about it because it means I can actually bring up the new standards.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a way that's really important for us to be able to help reassure people and reassure ourselves that what we're doing still matters and that the B Lab really does still care about this and is still willing to go and the extra mile.
Yeah. Maybe more positive spin on this. I'm wondering if you feel like there's enough consumer traction about B Corps. What can we do to really amplify it as a brand for consumers, a trusted brand, and especially keeping in mind, I've read so much research, which you all have referenced to, just how much this matters to younger consumers. So do you feel like there's enough kind of backing on the consumer side? What's more needed on that front?
So the question was, what to do on the consumer side to raise more awareness. I think, more advertising from B Lab would be great. But, a certification that's global, I mean, think of the marketing budget for that, right? So I think just B Corps coming out and proudly displaying their B Corp-ness, putting it in the ads, anytime I'm in the grocery store, I pick something up and go, oh, B Corp, stick it in my cart. Oh, B Corp, stick it in my cart. So people.
My daughter has figured that out. She's like, Mom, I need this. I'm like, no, you don't. She's like, it's B Corp.
And you cannot say no, right?
Yeah. I think what is really cool is that college students are learning about this. Business students are having conscious capitalism courses, purpose and impact courses, and even just in our recruiting when we go to campuses. So, campus recruiting events for accounting firms at colleges, they throw 40 or 50 accounting firms in a cafeteria or a gym and then open the doors and all the students come in. Immediately, I'll go to the big four. And the rest of us have to kind of twiddle our thumbs and wait for everyone to come to our booths, right? But the first year we became a certified B Corp and added the B Corp logo to our booth, students stopped dead and went, wait a minute, there's a B Corp accounting firm? Because they knew what that meant because they had learned about it. And suddenly we were just as busy at our booth as the big four. And that's when other firms started coming over going, so what's this B Corp thing?
When Jennifer was changing her tire, I told her we're gonna need an example of how B Corp actually helps with recruitment, and that was perfect.
There we go. I mean, it is hiring and retaining talent is like the #1 benefit that we've seen. I mean, we knew we were going to get good benefits becoming a certified B Corp, and we were the first accounting firm in California, and when we certified, like 1 in 5 in the U.S. Like, we knew it was going to be cool. We didn't know how cool it was going to be. The amount of collaboration, the amount of clients that would just automatically come to us, the talent, right? Seasoned professionals are really hard to find in the accounting world. And suddenly folks were knocking on our doors saying, we want to come work for you because you're a B Corp, right? And now when we do new hire classes and I ask, who knew about B Corp before you started? Almost 2/3 of the room will raise their hand.
Yeah.
So very cool stuff.
Yeah.
And I think in the wine industry, we're definitely not there yet, which is why things like this are very important, which is why everyone will tell you, particularly people who work with me, that I am intensely dull and will always bring up B Corp and will always ask me about B Corp. I literally need a little name tag.
And it's a good way to communicate it. I mean, even if they don't know it,
I have all the stickers on my book too.
We've shared with everybody that we just get the certification from B Corp, and some people came because we printed all over the winery, and some people was like, "What's that about?" I was like, "No worries, I'm going to tell you." And it's a good opportunity, to share that storytelling and say, "Hey, this is something important for us." So we really want everybody to make sure once they come and visit us that they learn what's a B Corp, and that's the way. They're going to go. It's a global brand. It's a global commitment with excellence. So once you go and buy whatever it's the product, whatever it's the service, if you see the B, the first time you don't know it. After that, okay, it's a B. I'm going to see it. And I really think everybody, all of us, after knowing what the B means, you're going to see it in a different way. Because you're going to say, okay, I don't know what is it, but I think I do trust on the B. And I think that's the most important thing. Even you don't know it, okay, let's have a check.
Yeah. Well, and I think the thing that's really cool too, right?
Oh.
Mood lighting.
Is that every single time that you guys do something saying, oh, we're a B Corp, oh, let me tell you about it, every time I'm on a panel and I talk about being a B Corp and let me tell you about it, we're actually marketing for all B Corps, right? We're educating consumers about every single B Corp and then they can educate other people. So it really is a grassroots marketing. And yes, of course, the more B-Lab can advertise, the better we all are. But I think it's something we really feel passionate about. It's something we you hadn't noticed. Yeah. And I think it's great to feel like you're doing something good.
For the eyes of the other people, you say.
For each other.
Yeah.
It's good, and I have a commitment, and I want to share that commitment with all of you. We recently did it, and it's just because we wanted everybody to know that we care about the people. We care about what we're doing, and Of course, our brands are delicious, but it's something else behind the brand.
And we were
I think it's
so
important.
excited. I think we were the first people who reposted Artesa's story. We're like,
That's the community, what I was saying. Like,
was
you care
so
about
excited.
community, this is about community. Like, oh my gosh, that's good for you, that's good for me. Well, we're here sharing with you, and I think it's good because if we think about tomorrow, if we don't do it together as a collective, it's nothing else that we can do.
And of course, we want all companies to be certified B Corp, yada, yada, yada. But if Napa Valley can start to actually assert some leadership in this sort of domain, I think that would be pretty freaking cool.
And if somebody has any questions, and we can help, I'm pretty sure all of us, but if the team that has been, working on it, or if anybody has like, hey, you just did it, how was this? Please feel free to contact us, and we will take care of everything.
And I believe, so Brad Handel, who runs Everyman Jack down in Marin, was the one who actually like put the event together and did the RSVPs. Yeah. Did not share it with any of us, but that's fine. But what I'm going to ask Brad to do, because he couldn't be here today, is actually send you all an email with all of our details.
Perfect.
So you'll all be able to contact us if and when.
Oh, not